Corporate regulations. You know, I'm typically not a fan, but if a government imposes regulations on companies that are abusing their consumers, and the end result is consumers having more digital freedom, then said regulations are, dare I say, based, especially when they are levied against a company like Apple, whose market cap is greater than the total wealth of several first world nations like Denmark, New Zealand, and Austria. When you get that big, I guess it's kind of hard to see your consumers as anything more than ants, and so that's why Apple operates the way that they do. Now, there are a number of regulations that are coming down on Apple from different markets, and if they want to continue being the most popular smartphone manufacturer and a titan in the technology world, they will have to comply. Based regulation number 1, coming out of the EU, of course, all smartphones, tablets, MP3 players, and other small electronic devices of that nature, they will have to use USB-C charging by the end of 2024. And laptop manufacturers, they have until the spring of 2026 to comply with the regulation and get on the USB-C train. This regulation received overwhelming support in the EU government, with 602 votes in favor, 13 against, and 8 absentee votes. Now, one of the primary reasons that the EU cites for this particular regulation is environmental concerns and wanting to reduce the e-waste. And I gotta say, I agree with their logic here. Digging up, refining, and then running copper through an extrusion machine to process it into copper wire, that requires a whole lot of energy, and it can create a whole lot of pollution, especially if these statistics, which show that the bulk of the world's refined copper is being produced by China, is accurate. That's a big deal because China's energy production is a whole lot dirtier. They are still very reliant on coal for producing power, and that produces way more pollution compared to other first world industrialized nations. We really shouldn't be burning coal just to make bullshit chargers, because that makes the swan sad. The lightning cable that iPhones currently use, it was a mistake. Well, okay, let's be honest. It was really more of a ploy for Apple to make more money off of their consumers. Give them an extra $50 to buy a lightning cable because you can't use your boyfriend's charger because he has a Samsung phone. I can't wait until this goes into effect, since the benefits are going to trickle over here to Burgerland. I can't picture Apple making new Lightning-only chargers for the American market, or laptop manufacturers continuing to make their proprietary chargers in 2026 for the burger market. So soon, the number of chargers that the Europeans will need to pack for holiday and us Americans will need to pack for vacations will go down dramatically. And it's not just the EU demanding Apple to use industry-standard chargers. The based sirs over in India are also joining the good fight, demanding all consumer electronics to use USB-C if they want to be sold in the country. So between those two markets, we're looking at roughly 2 billion people that Apple will not be allowed to sell to if they refuse to comply with these regulations. And of course, one of India's main exports are tech support experts, people who do third-party repairs for iPhones and things of that nature, so their shops will also be a lot less cluttered now that they don't have to carry Apple's proprietary chargers. There's also a lawsuit being filed against Apple in Brazil for them not including the charger bricks with new iPhones. Because of this, Brazil fined Apple 100 million reais, which is about $19 million. Now I know, finding a company like Apple millions and millions of dollars, it seems like an effective measure on paper. It makes for a nice headline, but remember, they're a $1 trillion company. So fining them $19 million is a lot like fining a millionaire $19. It's an amount of money that isn't even worth their time to pick up off the floor if it's sitting right there in front of them. But when I started investigating the smartphone market in Brazil, it appears that they are Android folk by a wide margin. And most of the people that do have iPhones in Brazil appear to be using older models, possibly sold through third parties. So I guess Brazil is just doing what they can, since it doesn't seem that they are consuming a whole lot of new iPhones in that country. Now the next regulation, also coming out of the EU, and this one actually came up recently, I believe was triggered because they considered Apple's App Store to be some kind of monopoly. Since Apple does not allow you to sideload apps on iOS devices under normal circumstances or get apps from alternative app stores onto your phone. No, they force you to go through the Apple App Store, and worse yet, they force you to create an Apple ID before you can download any apps, which allows Apple to track what you download and search for within the App Store, as well as use that data for targeted advertising, since of course, there's ads in the App Store now. Interesting how that works. First, Apple nukes third-party ads on their platform with app tracking transparency, and this has actually been so effective that it has caused all social media companies and pretty much any other company that relies on showing ads to drop in stock value by a significant margin. And then Apple goes and implements their own ads network to fill this power vacuum. You know, I have always said that when it comes to business dominance, Apple makes some of the most impressive plays these days. But back to the restrictions on sideloading. I actually made a video about that some time back explaining how preventing the sideloading of apps does not actually keep any iOS users safer. All it does is limit the freedoms of power users who may want apps on their phone that are not available in the App Store. In the Android ecosystem, the vast majority of people, they get their apps from the official App Store, just like Apple users do. And I'll give Apple some more credit here. Their vetting of apps and the overall security of their App Store is way better than the official Google Play Store on Android devices. But the most based amongst us avoid the Google Play Store altogether. We don't even have it installed on our phones, and we opt to get our apps from F-Droid, the Aurora Store, or directly from the developers. Apple allowing sideloading is very big news, and it appears that it has actually triggered an increase in their stock price. So of course, if green line goes up, the executives are more likely to maintain the decisions that resulted in that stock jump and will also result in them receiving bonuses. As someone who has been a long-time Android user, I have to say that Apple's iPhones, they're looking more and more based by the day. Sideloading will be allowed. iPhones will use USB-C like normal electronic devices. All that's left is iOS to become open source. You do that, Tim Apple, and I will consume your most expensive iPhone, as well as an official Satania case to put on it. Plus, I could really use that new satellite phone capability since I'm thinking of moving to Basecamp permanently and maybe even becoming an instructor down here at Basecamp so that I can save other city slickers like myself from the mental prison that is urban America. We will cleanse our minds together by touching grass, observing the stars at night, and enjoying the wildlife. Like and comment to hack the algorithm, follow me on Odyssey, and have a great day.